Welcome back to my live stream, where I like to think that we are bridging the gap between technical and non-technical people. I just thought of that today. I like to think that's my lot in life. I've been on both sides of that, and I understand the perspective of both sides in different contexts. So I think that is the purpose of the stream and why I'm here. I really do. I got a few things I want to cover today. A couple topics I put out there. Found a few posts on why Bubble isn't popular, or why Bubble isn't more popular, I should say. It's actually going back a little bit in the Bubble forum, but still relevant, I think. I saw a couple of interesting posts on pricing your product too low, and I want to also talk about how that relates to agency work and pricing yourself too low as a developer or agency or freelancer. And then I saw something kind of funny on a funny thought on getting a degree in computer science. So, hang on, let me get some water. So we're going to talk about all that today. And as usual, if you're out there listening, throw something in the chat. Let me know you're there. All right, let's kick it off with something easy. All right, let's start easy today. Let's not get too deep too fast, huh? Start with a meme from JavaScript developer. I like this post, by the way. If you want to keep kind of a pulse on what's happening in the coding community, which I recommend that everyone also does, JavaScript developer posts some interesting stuff. Hi, Ramon. Thanks for joining. So you got feature, right? Your average, your new feature that you're putting out, the dev test, which is usually, like the most ideal situations. I think as the developer of a feature, you know how to use it, so you don't really try, like, even if you say you're trying to break it, you really have some psychological blocker that's stopping you from really going hard and thinking like an edge case, which is why they have QA, right? There's something about that. And then your QA test will come in and push a little bit harder on that new feature and see, like, oh, well, they're going to push, they're going to push and give you feedback more so than the dev will, who built it. And then you got the user who's just going to kickflip and find any little thing, find anything, any possible way to break your feature, which is so true. It's so true. I think, the testing and the QA testing is definitely necessary, right? You have to do that to some extent, but you will never find all the bugs. Your users will find your bugs. I think it's about getting it to a certain acceptable point that accounts for 90% of the edge cases or the use cases, and that 10% is the edge case that's only going to be found by your users. So this is very accurate to me. All right, let's take a look at Anna's post. Now, if you don't know Anna is one of those people whose energy is infectious. Seems like she never gets tired. I've only had a couple of conversations with her, I think. But you can't help but feel lazy if you're comparing yourself to someone like Hannah. She's just on all the time, always on point. And her content is usually around, it seems to be to me to be around marketing, like how to market your app, different strategies for marketing. And I think one of her most important points that she makes quite often is that you shouldn't be pricing yourself too low. So she says here, can't stress it enough. The only competitive advantage, if the only can't read. If the only competitive advantage you're betting on is your product price, that is X% lower than your competitors, you're risking ending up disappointed or broke. A lower price doesn't necessarily mean better business, but it always means cheap customers. Damn it, that's good. That is super smart. You are go with a race to the bottom strategy for pricing. Whatever you're doing is going to result in cheap customers who are penny pinching, and that's always going to be a struggle. Um, like this, I think in the context that she meant it here was more about like don't price your product too low, right? Like don't. I think you have to know the value of the product that you're putting out there to get your pricing right. And pricing is like anything else; it's going to change over time. But I think probably more often than not, if you're putting out something new, the temptation is to put it out at a low cost so that because you think that will attract people to the platform. Not always the case. It will attract people, but is it the right person that you really want there? And I think that's her point here. And I think it's a good point. Taking it back to for any agencies or freelancers that are out there, if you're pricing yourself as an agency or a freelancer, if your rate is too low, you're going to wind up in a situation where you can't really sustain the model that you're trying to build. You're always going to be you're going to be arguing with your customers on price about everything, and that's a terrible position to be in because you want to be focused on the development work. If you've landed a client, you feel good about that. You want to be focused. Your creative energy should be focused in the development work, right? Solving problems, building out those new features, working on the design. You're not going to have that creative motivation if you're constantly arguing with your client over how much this feature is going to cost or how many hours this took you. That sucks the motivation right out of you. So if you're working with a customer that's like that or a client that's like that, it sucks. It sucks to be in that situation. And I've been there. And it's definitely a function of, or it's definitely partially a result of kind of being insecure to charge enough because you don't know how to price yourself a lot of times as a new product or a new agency or a freelancer or a new developer. You feel like, oh, I don't have enough experience to charge this top notch rate, which there's some truth to that, right? You don't want to go too high for your skill level, I guess. But you do want to charge something that you can, you can keep going with it. You can keep going. Like you don't want to run out of money essentially or get locked into a project that's in a fixed cost and you're basically just working for free. That's not good for you. That's not good for the client. That's not good for anybody. A lot of times what happens is that the client will ask you for a timeline and a budget, which is notoriously difficult to do. I talked about this earlier this week about estimating projects and timelines and tasks, new features, and it's super hard, especially if you're just starting out. And you may feel commit to timeline and cost, and you don't meet that. You're going to feel bad about not being able to deliver what you promised. And that's when you start feeling locked into a particular project, which is the worst spot to be in. But from the product side, it's hard to price yourself in the beginning too from the product side because you're like it's so subjective on how much you should charge. You have to kind of determine the value of how people see the value of what you're offering. How many facets of someone's problem are you solving? and what are they willing to pay for that, right? So again, it's a learning thing. I think just as much as you're learning about the person's problem, at the same time you're learning how much they're willing to pay for it, and how much of this, what parts of this problem are more important than others to them. But to Anna's point here, any race to the bottom is a recipe for pain in any context, any business context. If you're charging too little. I used to work at a restaurant. I used to work at a Fridays where there were always, like there was always these deals, and people would just come in for the deals. And even with the deals, you're still arguing with them on price, right? Like it can't get cheap enough. They'll still find something to complain about. It attracts the wrong type of customer. See what else they're saying here. Scaling a company is tough too if we instill we're cheap in our customers' minds. Yeah. Also, if your price is an X factor, you will also be out of market if your competitors gives discounts to reduce prices. Yeah, that's kind of true too. It also shows how you value yourself and what you're doing. Some founders don't know how to calculate costs. They only include infrastructure expenses, forgetting the cost of customer support, CAC. What's CAC? I don't know what that stands for. With time, the expenses pile up, but they have positioned the product as a cheap version of X, so they can't raise prices or get trapped. Hey, Sebastian. If someone knows what CAC means, tell me. I left everything as is for current customers, but I increased the prices and decreased the limits for new customers. Higher prices will force me to provide a better value. That's interesting, right? Almost kind of a like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're charging more, you're going to want to deliver more value. That's interesting. I like this. Let's follow Dimitro. Less revenue, more work. That's a sustainable model for sure. I think Nicholas is being facetious. You might be surprised how often it gets chosen. Yeah, it's true. More work, less money. My whole goal is to be the premium option. I've worked with budget clients before and it never goes well. Yeah, exactly like I just said. Let's dig into Dimitro's responses here a little bit. I like how you're using pricing as a way to motivate you to deliver a superior product. Yep, me too. It clicked. Easy to compete on prices. It's hard to compete on quality and other features. Okay. Some smart words there. Or maybe you realize the value is already high and people are happy to pay more. That's interesting too, right? So like you may not even know what your value is. You may not know what people are valuing. You may be undercharging with what you already even have. I know that the reason I know my value and why I charge a high price to my clients is as a freelancer is because I know how much work I'm going to put in. All right, I can see. I don't know everything. It's not because of my skill level. I've been working in Bubble and doing this for over 3 years now, so I have good experience. I can deliver what I promised, but that's not why I charge so much. I charge so much because I know what I'm going to deliver. I know how much effort I'm going to put into working with this client, and I'm going to do. They're not going to find anybody else that's willing to do what I am. That's how I understand my own value, right? That's the way that I think about it. It's the effort and how much I'm going to spend the time I'm going to spend understanding their business. How many freelancers can say that they do that, right? Like, how many freelancers can they say that can say that they understand their client's business? I'm going to guess not too many. But that's how I separate myself and why I feel justified in charging a higher rate. I think this is the right way to go. You need to provide better value for the increased prices. Customers will always be happy to pay for increased prices when they're getting their problem solved. Yeah, true. Were the prices too low in general, in your opinion? The project was inherently unprofitable, and many people, including current customers, said to me that it was too cheap. So if your customers are saying it's too cheap, interesting. Your customers say that your product is too cheap. And I've done that. I've done that. I thought Bubble was too cheap for a while. And they're still changing their pricing. But I thought that for what you were getting, especially on the free tier, it was definitely too cheap. Definitely weren't charging enough. If you want to increase income and number of users, do the following. Divide users into segments based on their use and features. Build subscriptions based on the needs of the segment. Each subscription is priced differently. The more features, the higher price. Some platforms do this to a fault. Like I think Monday gets a little ridiculous with this, with how much they segment out which features you're using. It sounds nice on paper, but it's quite annoying in practice. Uh, and it just like I can't use Monday because it's too goddamn expensive for the features that I want. And there's other tools that have just exactly what I want. Um, that don't cost that much. Sebastian, how should Junior start with Bubble? Good question. So I think the best place to start if if you're just approaching Bubble is the Udemy. I don't know how to say that. Udemy course. Uh Bubble Boot. It's called Bubble Boot. If you type in Bubble Boot Camp on Udemy, it'll come up probably as one of the first results. And it's by Gregory John, who also leads those trainings like the Build Camp and the Camp trainings. I think that's a great place to start. It gives you a very broad overview. There's some real life practical examples of what to build first. And he's a great educator. He just has that voice, the voice that you want to listen to. Coaching No Code Apps is another great resource. Gabby, it's just for some reason their voices are just made for listening to and instruction. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that gift is that they have, but those two. Gregory John is, I believe, from England, so it sounds nice to listen to him. But yeah, that's where I would start. And once you're there and once you've gone through that course a couple times and you're starting to feel like you're getting the fundamentals, try building something, right? It doesn't have to be anything too fancy, but just take a look, take a look at the best way to do it is just take a look at a site that you use quite often and ask yourself, what sucks here? What would I want to see? And then build that feature. And it's funny when you start doing that, you start to see problems all around you that you can solve with technology solutions. All right, off topic related to pricing. In my humble opinion, 5 plans is just too much. The leads to choice paralysis 100% of the time. It won't be you. I would remove integration starter and offer free 100 screen shoots on sign up. Yeah, I think definitely too many tiers is a mistake. I think 3 tiers. Like, don't have more than 3 tiers of service. It's too much. It's too much for the user, right? Like, I don't want to have to compare 5 different plans. Three is good. Speaking from the user's perspective. All right. They're saying pretty much the same stuff here. So, that's a couple of thoughts on pricing that I have. And other people seem to agree with that. I think pricing yourself too low is easy to do in the beginning, but it almost always leads to, in any endeavor, right? In any whatever you're working on, people tend to price themselves too low, but it tends to lead to undesirable results. Now we have another meme. Now I'm just gonna let this sit here for a second, because it took me a couple of minutes to, well, not minutes. It probably took me a few seconds to sink in, like what this was. But if you understand this, congratulations, you are a nerd. You've joined the ranks of nerds. Every time I order a pizza, the delivery guy tells me he couldn't find the place. The 404 error. Right? So if you're unfamiliar with a 404 error, it means that the resource or the URL that you've entered can't be located, or you're probably missing like a parameter, or the URL is wrong, or something like that. I'm on course with Habib. A bit dated, especially with the responsive features. Who's Habib? Where did you get that? What's Habib's course? I'm not sure which one that is. I mostly come into 404 errors when I'm working with APIs. You usually get like the URL has a wrong character, or it's missing a parameter that's required. You'll get a 404 error. And that's the joke here. Again, very nerdy, but cute if you see the 404 here. I wonder, like, the person that thought of this, like, they took a picture of the 404 door and was like, this will make a great meme. Like, I want to know that thought process. And people love it. All right, so I had to figure it out myself using rows and columns instead of fixed containers. Yeah, okay. So Sebastian, you're coming in a place and a time on Bubble where the new responsive is fully functional now. I think it's the default. It's not in beta anymore. It's the default, but they still have the old responsive engine in Bubble, and there are apps. I even have apps that are still on the old one because I just don't want to go through the pain of updating it to the new one. It's incredibly easier to work in the new responsive engine, so I don't see any reason to still work in the old one unless you have an existing app that you just for the life of you just don't want to transition it to the new, because that is difficult. Now, if you're going to be working with an app on an ongoing basis and you're and you're like, you're going to add more features, you have to go through it. You have to do it. It's, depending on how many elements are on the pages, it'll take you some time. Do it slowly. Know that it's going to be a process. Treat it like any other feature, and you'll get there. Even a relatively simple app I had probably took, like, I want to say 7 to 10 development hours to transfer it over to the new responsive. And it was, it was tough. The complete guide to Bubble visual programming. Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one. If I think there's an updated version. I mean, continue, even if you're on one of the old courses that's still using the old responsive engine, I don't think you should necessarily stop it. I think keep going, finish that out, and then look up some resources on how to work with the new responsive. I have a tutorial out there for working with the new responsive. That's, there's a lot to it, but I think if you understand, the container layouts, like you're saying, like row versus column versus fixed versus align to parent, if you understand that, the other stuff kind of becomes pretty easy. right? This is the basics of CSS Flexbox. Um, but I don't think give up on the current training that you're doing. I think finish that out because the fundamentals have not changed, right? Like custom states have not changed. Backend workflows still work the same way. The only thing that's probably like fundamentally different is the responsive engine, which if you understand the old one, you're gonna pick up the new one pretty quickly. So think of the old responsive is the same as the new if the only container layout was fixed. That's the best way that I can say it, right? You don't have the option of align to parent, column, or row. You only have fixed. That was the old responsive. You can put elements anywhere on the page, which is nice to get started. But as soon as you try to make that responsive, your shit goes crazy. Right? It's really hard to make a responsive page on the old responsive engine, especially if you're trying to size from like from desktop to mobile. Honestly, even on the new responsive engine, I find that a little challenging. I like to just like I like if there is a mobile component to my software or app that I'm building, I prefer to just have those on separate pages, right? So I'll have one for mobile, same functionality, but one page for mobile and one page for desktop. It's just easier. You don't have to write all of those conditions to hide elements. And the condition to on which page to navigate to is pretty easy also. You just have to write the condition once. If the page width is less than a certain amount, probably like 900 pixels or something like that, then navigate the user towards this page as opposed to this one. But the workflows in the background and the functionality that happens on that page is essentially the same. All right. You're not struggling with the new one. Good. Yeah. I mean, if you, what do you call it? If you're picking it up pretty easily, that's awesome. All right. So let's jump around a little bit. I'm going to jump over to the why bubble is not more popular question. This is a post that I found on the forum starting back from March of 2019. But people are still asking this question today. So I still think it's relevant. And I want to see how these comments stack up against um, what we're going, what the current state of bubble and what we're all. This are we complaining about the same things? I guess is the simple way to say it. As a much stronger, so this is started by Radark. I don't know this person. As a much stronger back-end Java developer, I'm absolutely in love with Bubble and the no-code concept. I love this product. Why isn't it much more popular? So this is somebody with a coding background that knows how to code that is using Bubble. I love these cases because it lends legitimacy to the platform when someone who knows how to code uses Bubble for some function. I think that's super cool. Yeah, exactly. Very rarely do I need to use um, the fixed layout. Very rarely. It's usually column. I would say the column and rows are the top spot. Those are the most common that I use. And then align to parent would be a distant second, and then fixed is a distant third. I very rarely use the fixed layout in the new responsive engine. So again, this is someone who knows how to code. Redark. He knows how to code, but he's using Bubble for some reason, one reason or another. I assume it's a he. It looks like a guy. Silly brand name. That's the first comment. Boo. I don't like that comment. I don't think the brand name has much to do with it. I think 250,000 users means it's a fairly popular. Yeah, I mean, there's over 2 million today, right? So back in 2019, think of that growth trajectory. Damn. 250,000 users in March of 2019. What are we at today? I think we're over 2 million. I think Bubble's over 2 million users. Yep. Join 2,132,000, right? So over 2 million users. Now, the question going to be here is how active are these users? Right? I think that included in this number is anyone who's signed up for a Bubble account. I myself have 3 accounts. So am I included 3 times here? Probably. Yep, and there you go. Ain't none. Yes, but are they all active? Exactly. Um, Now this goes to, it's you start getting into the debate of like, well, what do you consider popular, right? Like when I ask this question to myself, I think of, well, why isn't it the default way to build software yet, right? Why aren't people go instead of automatically you going to looking to traditional coding as the default way to build something? Why is it not Bubble? And then if you need custom code, fine. But why not go the path of least resistance first before you go into traditional uh, JavaScript or front end development or whatever you plan to use? And there's a lot of thoughts on why that's the case. Um, uh, yeah, there's a few, and I'm sure they're going to come up in this thread. Speed of development is thrown back, but the speed of apps in operation. I don't know what the hell that means. When I pitch Bubble to folks, these are the things that come up. Vendor lock-in. I don't ever get access to my source code. I think this is definitely a concern for people who know how to code, right? They want access to that. They want to be able to go under the hood, and that is something that I hear people complaining about quite a bit. Why can't I access the source code? No native mobile support. This is something that I don't think is as big of a concern as it was. I think the mobile native argument is I think they've done a good job of addressing this. I think the hope is that we're moving away from mobile native apps and that you can just access your software and applications that you want to use in a web browser, which is a much more democratic way to do it. If you have to go through like Apple and Google both have all of these, hoops that you have to jump through to get your app onto the App Store. Now, on the one hand, there's quality control there. Yeah, sure, that's like that's good. That you're confident that the app that you're signing up for isn't going to be malicious. But on the other hand, it's like they take a percentage of the in-app purchases. You have to you have to get approval when you're pushing updates, not in Bubble, but in the traditional sense. So I think the hope here from Bubbles and from my end too, I hope this happens, is that they move away from these centralized app stores, or that the world moves away from centralized app stores. Will it happen? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what the future is gonna bring? Performance can't self-host. I don't know why you would want to self-host. Why would you want to worry about the security of hosting your own app? Unless you got a team, like a security team that knows what they're doing. But I don't know why anybody would want that. These to me seem like concerns for technical people, right? This is what a technical person would ask. These 4 things are what a technical person would ask or be concerned about before investing time in a platform like Bubble. But I don't think that's the non-technical person's first thing that they're thinking about, right? I don't think so. Maybe the mobile native stuff, but can't self-host, performance, and vendor lock-in. Those are only things that you would be concerned about if you had someone technical in your ear saying that, look, oh, this is what you should watch out for. I'm not saying that these are good excuses, but this is what I hear from skeptics or people who tried and decided isn't for them. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, they are legitimate concerns. And there's no, like, I'm not here to even argue these points. Like, you can make strong arguments for both sides. It's just um how important is self-hosting if you're in the early stages of validating a problem? Not really that important. Hopefully one day Bubble Team decides to OS the code, open source the code, without the PAAS part. I don't know what that means. So 1 and 4 are covered, 1 and 4 points from above, while keeping the monetization and the PAAS service they provide. I actually want to know what PAAS is. PAAS. Platform as a service is a complete development and deployment environment in the cloud with a resource that enable you to deliver everything from. Okay, so platform as a service. That's what it stands for. Yeah, I mean the Bubble's business model is based around you being on their platform and scaling on their platform. So I understand the concern for letting people maybe not letting people. Maybe the answer here is not. Maybe I don't know. There's such a hot topic around being able to export code, but maybe being able to modify the underlying code of your individual app locally. Maybe the ability to do that would alleviate some of these concerns because you're not coming off the platform if that's the case. All right, some valid points raised in the post above. I also find the Bubble homepage and general site design, if I'm honest, a bit uninspiring. Do I agree with that? It's plain. It's pretty plain. I don't think this site demonstrates how pretty Bubble apps can actually get. They can get very beautiful if you have a strong designer. Especially if I wasn't aware of the capabilities of the platform. Yeah, exactly. The homepage doesn't really provide a demo visually of what's possible, apart from that you can add, drag, and resize elements. If you could do, it could do more with a feature-rich video, a couple long minutes, long to run through the features that they offer. I realize that this is something minor, but you know what they say: first impressions count. That's kind of true. That's kind of true. I hate to admit it, but that is kind of true. I believe before the redesign, they had the Twitter clone site video, and although it was in a way just a tech demo, I feel like it did capture people's attention and added some intrigue to think of the possibilities. Yeah, so that lended some credibility when I think it was Canvas AirDev. I think it was AirDev that rebuilt Twitter, and they did it in like 2 days or something like that. So it had all the functionality of Twitter, and they did it in such a short time that people were so impressed by that. So this demonstration of how powerful the platform is probably going to be most compelling to people who are skeptical about the platform. Now, the problem there, even if you're recreating a successful platform, is how are you going to get people to actually use it? How are you going to test the limits of traffic and the amount of data that can be processed? Because no one's actually going to sign up to use a Twitter clone, because why would you? Twitter is out there, right? So while recreating a successful platform is a good demonstration of the functionality that you can deliver on a platform like this, it doesn't say much about the scalability of it unless people are actually using it, which is, as everyone knows, is probably the harder part. Getting people to use your platform is much harder than actually building it. Ideally, those things are happening at the same time. I realize it is something minor, but you know what they say. I read that already. Yep. Yep. All right, let's jump back a little bit. Let's jump back. I'm going to take a break from this particular post to bring on a couple of more thoughts that I thought were interesting. Switch gears a little bit here. Roberto Robles. One of my clients referred two new clients to my agency. It only took 15-minute Zoom calls to close each sale. Why? Trust was already there. That's why client referrals are money in the bank. Yes. You cannot beat a warm lead. If you are a freelancer or bubble agency, you cannot beat a warm lead. The biggest obstacle to getting clients is, I don't think it is exposure. I don't think it's pricing. I think it's trust. If your client trusts you and you are acting as a trusted advisor, they'll do whatever you say, right? They're going to work with you. They're going to continue to work with you because they trust you. And it's your job as the developer slash freelancer to be honest about, what you can deliver. And really, it's very simple to build trust. You just have to do what you say you're going to do. That's your main job in your job description as an agency freelancer. The top priority of that is do what you say you're going to do. The number one item on that list. And if you do that continuously, you're going to build a tremendous amount of trust with your client. And they're never going to want to work with another developer. You're going to have to fire them if it comes to that, if you ever had the reason to. Now, the question is, how do you establish that trust very early on? It's hard. It is difficult. I think you have to start small. I think the easier it is to get started, the better those conversations are going to go. So I've been working with, why don't we just do 10 hours and see how we like each other? Right? So you're not overly committing to a specific project. The client is not overly committing to you if they don't know you as the developer. Just see what you can deliver in these 10 development hours. They pay you and you over deliver in that time. That's going to be your first step towards trust. Over deliver in those first 10 hours. I think that's the best way to show good faith and get that person interested in working with you as a freelancer or agency. I like that comment. See what else they're saying. Well done, Roberto. Referrals have been proven to be the highest close rate of any lead source. Yet rarely do people ask for referrals. Yeah, I think I'm a little shy to ask for referrals too. Not shy. Is it shy? I suppose the psychological barrier there is that you don't want people to know that you need referrals, I would say. But we do. Referrals are great. It's way better than like cold email marketing or like paid marketing, paid ads on like social media and stuff. Referrals are so much easier. The conversations are so much faster. I don't milk it too much, but whenever referrals is right, I do ask my client for referrals. Agree, best closing rates. I've never asked my client for a referral. I should. I should. I should be doing that. That's a best practice. Roberto. Yep. I like it. I dig it. All right. Switch gears again. Another meme that I liked. Dropping no code truth bombs. No code is just code with a GUI, graphical user interface. I believe this is true. There is code, right? Any platform that claims they are no code, there is code. You're just not seeing it. There's just a graphical user interface that is put on top of the code so that you can manage it as somebody who doesn't know how to read code. So, yes, this is very true. I wonder if anybody got mad at this. I don't think anybody did. But it's definitely true. All right, let's get back to our why bubble is not more popular article. You also have to take into account that maybe Bubble doesn't want to grow out of scale at the moment, and as it could impact negatively their support and future roadmap. Maybe they're happy with the rate of growth, which seems healthy on revenue side. There are more KPIs that are unknown to us, but at least revenue is covered. Is this revenue? I wonder how they got this. Oh, indie hackers. Is it still active? Are you still tracking this? That'd be cool. Twitter, followers, posts, Facebook. I either don't have access to this because I'm not logged in, or I don't know. But this was back in March of 19, so they had in March. Wait a minute. So they had monthly recurring revenue in, let's say, if I'm reading this correctly, it was monthly recurring revenue at over 120K in July of 2019. Nice. It's good. I'm sure it's a lot more now. I think this is the bubble team is tactical about growth. They're slowly yet adequately growing. They have not raised venture capital. Oh, this shows how this is before they raised that 100 million, which means that they're content with their growing pace. We are in love with the product, so I get why you ask such a question. I think kind of separate from what I'm seeing here, or some of the responses that I'm seeing here, I really think that the reason it's not more popular is a general lack of a well-known platform, a well-known software that was designed by Bubble. They do point on the website. They do point to these sites that have, or these startups that have raised cash, right? Like these secured a dividend is a startup that raised 365 million in venture capital. That's pretty impressive. But dividend is not in the it's not like a publicly known company. You know what I mean? Like not a lot of, it's not like a household name, for example, like Facebook is or Twitter is, right? These unicorns, as we call them. They may be very useful and they may be generating revenue for their founders and they may be scaling. Like they have to be showing some type of scale to be getting funding at this level. But this is clean energy, home office financing, loan repay. This is IT talent. This is tracks and organized job search. It's not a, and I don't want to keep referring to social media as necessarily the template or the thing that that needs to go to get huge before anyone's going to recognize Bubble as a legitimate option. But there's something more. I don't know how to say it. It's like non-specific, little less niche. I think if there was something a little more less niche that was well known and the founder was open that, oh yeah, this is built on Bubble, I think that would lend a lot of credibility to the platform. And people would see like, oh wow, they built this crazy thing that I love using on Bubble. Well, that means that like I could use it too. I can build something cool too. Because believe it or not, people are very hesitant about even if they are building something that their customers are using and the founder is making money off of, they're hesitant to reveal that their stack is Bubble. They think I think a lot of like they something about that it's like um admitting that. It's like they have to admit that. It's like it's something to hide or something to be shameful of. I've heard of people saying that like, oh, it's a I've heard of founders hiding that for a reason of you don't want people to know like your secret sauce. Like you don't want your competitors to know how you're so agile and how you're developing your platform at such a low cost. That's kind of like they would consider that an industry secret. But I think if that's the case, that's really hurting. That's really hurting the no code space and Bubble if people are thinking that way because then no one will ever know, like if you're keeping a secret what stack you're using, how are these platforms going to get more legitimacy? I don't think that's a good way. And on the opposite end of that, if you're hiding it because you're kind of ashamed that you're not using a real tech stack, um, that is equally as is harmful. It's just I think we got to get past that. I think there's that's something to move past. Um, I think that, and I think the power of the power of the platform and the scalability of it speaks for itself, right? The proof should be in the pudding. If you're doing something and you're building something and people are using it and you're making money off of it, why would you not want to tell people how you did it? I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic in thinking of that like transparency and openness stuff. Maybe there are real repercussions to it, but I tend to think that the more open you are about those types of things, the more people will be inspired and engage with you. Um, that's just my thought. Agree. I saw all these points come up in a way or one another in here and other places, but native mobile support and performance. These 2 points are the most important at the moment in Bubble, in my opinion. I know that the mobile native was. I'm hearing this less and less. I guess this was important before BDK did such a good job, like the mobile native support. The lack of mobile native support on Bubble's part, I think, was more of a concern before BDK native figured that out. So maybe that's what they're thinking about here. BDK really took a lot of those mobile native features and made them pretty easy to implement in Bubble. So I think that's why that's not as big of a concern. Bubble didn't do it themselves, but Garav was forward thinking enough to know that all right, people are complaining about this and they say they want it. So he built an entire platform around making making Bubble apps mobile native. So we got to thank forward thinkers like Garav in making this a more complete ecosystem. While it is true that you don't have access to source code, but database is accessible by API if one wants it. So if you think this should be a big problem for most people, also can't self-host is not a big problem for many people since you need to host it anyways. When I say it's not a big problem, I mean that one can sacrifice these features easily if you give me a native mobile support and solid, reliable performance. True. Yeah, definitely of those four, some those are there's definitely priorities there, or they can definitely be prioritized. Sometimes when I'm developing on mobile, I stop and think this whole platform is bootstrapped. Unreal. Shows you how good Bubble, the founders team, is. I'm not an expert, but I don't understand why Bubble team won't raise money faster than growth. They've been in the market almost 4 years now, plus they have a huge number of paying customers. Surely they have found product market fit. I don't know if they're profitable, but it doesn't matter because it's a huge success that didn't raise money yet in my book. I have no doubt that investors will gladly invest in Bubble blindly. Well, they did. So you were right. Well, I don't know about blindly, but they did invest. The market is changing fast. So many no-code tools are coming out and going fast, and people are actually starting to notice this. And in my opinion, there is no solid competitor to Bubble in the market so far. And in fact, Bubble is way ahead of them. And I don't get why people don't realize this. Hence the topic. In fact, I feel it's an insult, an insult to Bubble that it competes with other platforms like Card. I don't think they're competing. All right, let's talk about this. This is an interesting part, but I'm worried if this state will stay the same for a long time. I don't think Card and Bubble are looking at each other like competitors. Card is a website builder, single page websites, very intuitive, very pretty, very easy out of the box. That is not what Bubble does. They're very different platforms. Yes, they're both labeled as no code platforms, but I use both, right? And I would happily give my money to Card if I just needed a simple website spun up in a few hours. Um, that's the right tool. Card is the right tool if you need a quick website. Throw up a quick website. Bubble is not the right tool for that. In fact, I think Bubble's website building capability, like there's just better tools. It's hard. It's harder than it needs to be to build a website, like a landing page on Bubble. So I don't think that these tools compete with each other. I agree in the sense of what this person said here, where there isn't a solid competitor to Bubble. I think I said this earlier in the week, but I think the biggest competitor is just the convention of how we've done things in the past, in the narrow way that we think of building software and working with agencies and working with developers. I think that mindset needs to expand a bit, but I don't think the no code tools are really trying to even compete with each other. Think about how different maybe like something like Zapier is competing with Make, maybe those two. But they're the way that these platforms are all developed are so specific. I do see a lot of people coming off of Adalo and Glide and saying, okay, I need something more powerful. Now I need to learn Bubble. I have seen that progression, especially through the boot camps. They would build their first version of their app on Glide or Adalo, and then hit a development wall that those platforms couldn't support, and then they said they wanted something a little bit more robust, so they moved to Bubble. So that I think is true, but I don't know. Does that make them competitors? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know that it does. I think it's more about the right tool for the job. I think that's the way to think about it. What use case are you what use case do you have, and is the platform that you are choosing the right tool for that? I don't think it's an insult though. I don't think it's anything of an insult, and I don't think Bubble is insulted by someone saying that they have competitors. I don't think in what Bubble has been intended to be used for. I don't think that there is any. I haven't come across a strong competitor, right? A strong like one that would say like, oh, I'm going to learn this new platform because it does what Bubble can't do it. I haven't come across that. So if I'm using Bubble for, Bubble is my default way to build web applications. I don't have a better option right now. Okay. All right, let's break this up a little bit. Another thing I want to comment on is this post here. This dude, I think very smart, kind of the build in public mentality on full display here. This dude is asking for where he should place the save button, and he just posted like he's building, and he posted should the save button be down here or up here? And he got feedback from his Twitter friends. Based on the comments, A seems to be better for the UX, more prominent, easier to discover, easier to tap. I think that was my first impression too. The save all the way down at the bottom there. But B is a popular UI UX pattern for iOS app. Try to edit your iCloud name. So I guess the question is better UX or better consistency? Good question. I use Android and would vote for A. This seems to be ample space here, and I have easy access. It's better in my opinion. A, no doubt, but the button disabled gray until something is changed. Ooh, yeah. A. I wonder if there's a divide in the answer here between Android and Apple users. I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if all the Android people love A and all the Apple people love B. I don't know. It just intuitively though, like having it down here makes more sense to me. It's just so big. But I think the bigger thing here is just like the build in public part. We should all be doing stuff like this. We should all be putting this stuff in front of people as we're building it. Very much like this mindset of building. Putting everything out there and seeing how people react to it. It's the way to go. Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Developers will spend, back to the JavaScript developer. Developers will spend $150K on a computer science degree to then learn JavaScript on YouTube. So this is true, right? Like I know at least one person that did this. I know one person that went to a proper 4-year computer science degree, which took a while. Of course, it took the 4 years. And I know somebody that learned JavaScript through a boot camp, went through a coding boot camp, and finished it in I think like 4 months. And as far as the market goes in determining their value, they're the same. Like employers want people who know how to code. I don't know how important it is that they have the computer science degree. I don't know. So it begs the question, is it worth it to go through a 4-year degree for a hard skill like this that you can teach yourself given enough effort and discipline? It's a good question. And save yourself, and if you can teach yourself this stuff through YouTube and other free resources, like, do you really want to put yourself in that kind of debt too? If you're going to a 4-year college, private school, do you want to be putting yourself in that debt? I went to CUNY. So my background is in human resources. So I was kind of paying it off. I got financial aid undergrad, and then I paid my way through grad school. Um and so I didn't have any debt coming out, but people who went to private school, my friends who went to private schools, they all have they have a tremendous amount of debt they had to pay off, and are probably still paying off. So this begs the question: spending 150K on a degree for something that you can learn in full proficiency for free, is it worth it? And I think I'm going to end on that today. Actually, I want to take a look at this angry post here. CS is not JS and vice versa. This is bullshit. This is confused post from someone without a CS degree trying to come up with some kind of explanation or excuse. I have a CS degree and I learned a lot of things from YouTube, but sorry guys, there are some things that can't yet be learned watching videos, no matter how you work your ass off practicing your skills at this keyboard. I don't know if that's true. YouTube can't replace a degree. A degree is not mandatory. To be good at what you do, you can be a good dev without a degree. But that does not mean in any possible way that a degree is useless. If you don't get this, is because you don't have one. Maybe. I mean, he's making the argument for a computer science degree. I think definitely more well-rounded. If you have a computer science degree, it's not just coding, right? That's a fair point. You're you having a broad understanding of computer science is probably superior than to just knowing like how to code things, right? There's a broader understanding of how things work if you're going to go through a full 4-year degree. But with that said, there's a lot of bullshit that comes with any 4-year degree. Gym classes, and like the 60 credits that you have to do that are mandatory, right? How much of that time is spent in in things that are not really going to apply to what you're going to be working on? Even the important thing like physics, like I know the person that I know that went through the computer science degree, he had a lot of physics courses to take. Now physics is important, but how often is applied physics being used in his day job as a programmer? Come on. Also, if your tuition is so unreasonably expensive, try to fix that instead of complaining and falling back to corner cuttings. I mean, this dude sounds a little angry. He's a little angry. I think he feels that the post is undermining the effort that he put into his degree, um, which is fair. Which is fair. But I think there's definitely an argument to be made about spending 150K on a degree for something that you could learn potentially for free. All right, everybody. I'm gonna end it there today. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Now I'm gonna be streaming every Monday, every weekday, 7 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays, 1 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right, so check me back next week. Thanks, everybody.